My name is Alice McAuliffe. The work I've made for Eden Unearthed is called Concrete Carpet, and it's part of a series of concrete carpet works. Concrete carpet is a stencil pattern that can be rendered onto different surfaces, whether it be concrete, in paint, or with a high pressure water hose, as I've done here at Unearthed. The concrete carpet works when they're made with a high pressure water hose actually are nothing. There's nothing there, there's no footprint. All that's happened is a little bit of dirt has been cleaned from one place and transferred to another. So in a sense, they are a true environmental work because there's nothing produced and the work just exists in the environment. And as people walk on top of it and engage with that space, and I hope sometimes people are more inclined to consider the space that they're inhabiting and walking on when they see this pattern on the ground. But the more people who walk over the space, the faster it will eventually wear away. The inspiration for the work is quite, I guess, a little bit complicated. I had the chance of living in Italy for 5 years after I finished my studies. And when I was living in Italy, I lived in Venice and Florence and Turin. And all these three cities have such rich histories of artists and artisans working within the city walls. And within that, it means that in a contemporary context, the cities are full of the output of these people, whether it be in the architecture or walking around or within the spaces that we inhabit, going about our day-to-day lives in these cities. It was certainly a very opulent sort of cities to be living in. And it struck me how much the history and the visual signifiers of different stages of history were compressed in these cities. And it was that visual overload and the compressing of all that visual stimulus within the cities that really struck me at the time, and how much the traces of history were present around us everywhere we went. When I came back from Italy, I guess I was processing that information a little bit, but also processing what it meant to then be in Australia in a very different environment again. Without the same, understanding of visual history that we might see in Europe, but walking on the country of the oldest continuous living culture in the world, such a different way of understanding history and how we relate to our environment. So I think with Concrete Carpet, what I've tried to do is take elements of the Baroque or the High Renaissance or the Nouveau, the opulent times in design history, and take elements of those and laser cut them into stencils, metal sheets, bringing them together for the concrete carpet works, laying them on the ground as a kind of, a way for us to consider walking on the ground. Perhaps I sometimes consider that perhaps if we put the motifs from, a European history, one that someone like me is more used to understanding as being of value, if we put that on the ground and walk on those, perhaps we become a little bit more conscious of what it means to walk on country in Australia. I think everyone engages with work differently. I think one of the things that I really like about this work in terms of putting it into a sculptural context is that there's no material substance to the work. It doesn't inhabit positive space, it doesn't create negative space, but yet it has a visual presence. So I think perhaps for some people, it'll confront their expectations of what sculpture can be, but I think it'll be interesting for people to have that different physical relationship rather than having the frontal kind of way of engaging with a sculptural piece. Instead, it's something that we walk upon. It moves you from A to B. So it's just a different way, of exploring the idea of sculpture and how it inhabits the environment. Part of my practice is also working in socially engaged practices. So I really always love to connect with and engage with communities. As I've said, Concrete Carpet is a site-specific work, so people can walk on it, but then I also love to run workshops with the community alongside making of the work. So people can explore themselves how to make stencils, how to make patterns and designs and motifs that mean something to them or have relevance to them. But then I ask people to join together in groups and render their stencils just using colourful chalk on the ground, but render them in patterns that make up carpets. So with a group of friends or family, you can come together and create your own rug, your own carpet, bringing together all these designs. So for a lot of people, it's a really wonderful way of creating a motif that means something to them, creating a colourful temporary artwork on the ground that everybody can see, but working together as a group of people to combine your stories, combine your motives to create a bigger story together.